Happy Friday, everybody. Just wanted to do a out of the blue. Happy Friday, everybody. Whoa. Hold on for a second. Hold on. Had too many windows open here. It's last minute, as you can tell. Stream. Hope everyone is doing well. Hope you're having a good Friday. I appreciate those of you deciding to spend it with me and talk about all the wonderful things that are happening in the world today. Architect, welcome. Have some things to talk about tonight. Monkeypox. Monkeypox is back in the news. It's not too surprising that it's back in the news. But it's, with these things that happen, when you get to be my age, you start to see these patterns of behavior, repetitive patterns of behavior, that sort of get old. Actually, not sort of get old, but really get old. You see these things that happen again and again. And it's like, okay, I've seen this before. And one of the things that is repetitive is when it gets really close to election time, there's some sort of weird disease or something that ends up coming up, and monkeypox is one of them. And so now all of a sudden the WHO is talking about monkeypox being a problem, and one of these guys who I watch, who does a really good job of putting some real kind of concise things together, is Greg Reese, and he's going to discuss here the WHO declaring an international emergency over monkeypox. Meanwhile, I think we all know how you get it, but it's kind of crazy now. All of a sudden, it's this huge emergency.
Just as new evidence showing D.C. police as the source of the January 6th pipe bombs gets released, and as the monumental crimes of the Biden family finally come to light, a new pandemic is announced by the WHO.
Mpox has been reported in the Democratic Republic of the Congo for more than a decade, and the number of cases reported each year has increased steadily over that period. Last year, reported cases increased significantly, and already the number of cases reported so far this year has exceeded last year's total, with more than 14,000 cases and 524 deaths. Today, the emergency committee met and advised me that, in its view, the situation constitutes a public health emergency of international concern. I have accepted that advice.
And once again, the WHO is saying we need contact tracing.
So we need strong surveillance and good diagnostics. Our diagnostics teams are...
We need strong surveillance and diagnostics. Where have we heard that before?
working to better understand the use of the current PCR tests, the other tests that exist that are out there, to distinguish between clade 1, clade 2.
By the way, it's getting to the point now with these PCR tests that the tests just aren't that good anymore. People are getting COVID now again. In a lot of cases, like third and fourth time of getting it. And the COVID test isn't showing up as positive. But most doctors are saying, yeah, it's probably COVID. But because it's mutated so many times, that it's probably pretty difficult for these tests to come to pick them up. Now all of a sudden we're going back to this PCR testing again. We're doing all this bullshit.
And we are looking at how we can get those those diagnostics into country.
They are calling for PCR testing again, which we already know is ineffective and fraudulent when it comes to identifying a virus. Dr. Kary Mullis was awarded the Nobel Prize for his invention of the polymerase chain reaction, the PCR. The PCR is a method of analysis and wasn't designed to test for a virus. Mullis explains why.
And with PCR, if you do it well, you can find almost anything in anybody. It starts making you believe in the sort of Buddhist notion that everything is contained in everything else, right? I mean, because if you can amplify one single molecule up to something that you can really measure, which PCR can do, then there's just very few molecules that you don't have at least one single one of them in your body, okay? So that could be thought of as a misuse of it, just to claim that it's meaningful.
The PCR test can potentially find anything you are looking for, depending on how high you turn it up. And this is exactly what has been done. The official protocol given for the PCR testing of COVID-19 created a floodgate of false positives to skew the results. They call it asymptomatic because it's a lie. These people don't have symptoms because they don't have COVID-19. They do it today because they've done it in the past and always gotten away with it. China announced on Friday.
Kary Mullis, by the way, who invented the PCR test, had a lot of choice words back in the early 90s about Anthony Fauci, and said that he is a joke. He's a terrible doctor. He doesn't know anything about anything. And then this is really after what happened during the AIDS epidemic in the 80s, because Fauci screwed that up too. And what's amazing to me, and a lot of people for that matter, that he was given so much credibility when it came to COVID. And he showed his ineptitude later on in COVID, which was as equally as inept as he was during the AIDS pandemic as well. And Mullis died at a very early age under very mysterious circumstances. And as he said, this PCR test, which was used, the same technology was used during these tests for a lot of these things, including COVID and I think monkeypox as well. And what he said, when you turn it up, you could find any cell in any body. So you could find a COVID cell in somebody's body that's been dormant and dead for years. But if you turn it up high enough, it'll show as a positive infection. That's how strong the PCR test is.
That they will be screening people and goods entering the country for Mpox over the next 6 months. In the 2024 New Zealand Pandemic Plan, under the Special Powers legislation, it states that authorized medical personnel have the power to force vaccinate people. And Google's former CEO, Eric Schmidt, is creating an AI army for robotic war. And what he first says will be defensive.
And the idea basically is to do two things. Use AI in complicated, powerful ways for these essentially robotic war. And the second one is to lower the cost of the robots. Now you sit there and you go, why would a good liberal like me do that? And the answer is that the whole theory of armies is tanks, artillery, and mortar, and we can eliminate all of them. And we can make the penalty for invading a country, at least by land, essentially be impossible.
But then admits they will be primarily offensive.
Does it give more of an advantage to defense versus offense? Can you even make that distinction?
Because I've been doing this for the last year, I've learned a lot about war that I really did not want to know. And one of the things to know about war is that the offense always has the advantage because you can always overwhelm the defensive systems.
So what is this? What does this also tell you? It tells you that Schmidt, who is a scumbag who ran Google, who suppressed speech on YouTube through Google, was an eBay guy as well. Now all of a sudden he's a proponent of war. Democrats and liberals are supposed to be opponents of war, not proponents of war. So here you have a guy that's trying to convince you or brainwash you into thinking that offensive war, invading another country, and in this particular case, what they're trying to do is they're trying to placate you into laying down and being taken over by an army of robots, which very well may happen within the next, inside of a decade, probably less. Probably less inside of 5 years. With a conversation I had in a Spaces on X where this guy who claims he's not Elon Musk, probably is Elon Musk, said that it's going to happen within 5 years. And so what they're doing is they're preparing you for this takeover, for these alien or these robots to come around and knock on your door and, oh, you said the wrong thing online, so we're gonna drag you to this FEMA camp that they're already building. There's a bunch of FEMA camps that are being built already. They're trying to tell you that it's really all about storms and shit like that, but it's not. That's not what it is. They're camps to jail those who dissent, those who are against the communist takeover, the new Bolshevik 2.0 revolution. We need to have a Red Scare 3. We need to have Joseph McCarthy again. We need to have, and this is the thing that concerns, and I'm going to go off on a tangent, but this is the thing that really pisses me off about Donald Trump. Donald Trump isn't doing enough to say, when I get into office, we're going to have another Red Scare. We're going to deal with the communists. He's not even admitting that communists even exist. And, he's more concerned with Israel and the Jews instead of what they've created, which is communism and their takeover. Schmidt is a communist. I mean, he's a multimillionaire, probably a billionaire. And that's how communism works. People like him have the billions, and the rest of us who are the middle class get squeezed and used as slaves. We are the new slave class. The white American native-born people are the modern-day slaves. We're the ones who are being used and having our resources extracted from us. And you can see what's going on with immigration. And I'm going to show you a video that is really, if it is true, I can't verify it, but I'm pretty sure it's probably true and it probably is real based on anecdotal evidence and everything else that's going on. It just really kind of shows me you can any reasonable doubt what's happening. Just heard my voice again. What the hell's going on here? Freaking me out. Bear with me while I try and figure out what I'm doing here. I just heard my own voice again, and sometimes I have a extra tab open that I shouldn't have. And, YouTube, it's funny. YouTube is definitely, there's no doubt, it's controlled. Architect, let me know if you're still in, because I'm just kind of trying to test to see. Just type in 1 if you are still on YouTube. If not, if you've moved to a different platform, let me know. Because I cannot trust the analytics. What else we got here? So, Architect, are you ALAB podcast on X? So did you move over? I'm just trying to keep track of who's moving where. Or are you some ALA? Or are you somebody different? Okay, so let me finish out this video here with Greg Reese.
And so you're better off as a strategy of national defense to have a very strong offense that you can use if you need to. And the systems that I and others are building will do that. Because of the way the system works, I am now a licensed arms dealer.
While the Uniparty vows to pit Americans against each other in a civil war to maintain its power.
Bodyguards for everybody in Civil War conditions.
The big tech elitists are developing an offensive robot army and more clot shots. Reporting for InfoWars, this is Greg Reese.
So there you have it. It seems seemingly that you have those who are supposed to be anti-war, supposed to be peace and love, are pro-aggressive war. I mean, and also seemingly preparing you for an invasion of robots to come in and arrest you and bring you to FEMA camps. So I'm more convinced than ever that's what's going to end up happening. I think they're trying to, there's a lot of these, what you consider accelerationists, those who want to accelerate the process and try and take as many people as they possibly can and put them away. And so going back to where we started, first thing talking about is all of a sudden monkeypox is becoming an issue again through the WHO. And you have in this video with Greg Reese the possibility of robots and them taking on the stance of aggressive invasions when it comes to warfare as opposed to avoiding war. Try and stay out of war like Donald Trump has been trying to do or did when he was in office. It's amazing how the polls have shifted when it's come to that. Yeah, the ALA, going back to what's going on in the UK, and someone, I don't know if it was you that asked me yesterday, but Keir Starmer and it's the guy who wrote the letter, this guy, Thierry Breton, who is a European part of the European Commission, wrote this letter to Elon Musk when it came to the interview with Donald Trump on X, that he needed to be sure that he paid attention to misinformation and disinformation, but in the very first sentence of the letter didn't even mention Donald Trump's name. He says, I'm writing to you in the context of recent events in the United Kingdom and in relation to the planned broadcast on your platform of a live conversation between a U.S. presidential candidate and yourself, which will also be accessible to users in the EU. Now, U.S. presidential candidate instead of saying Donald Trump. Now, if that were Joe Biden, he would have mentioned the name. But the letter goes on to say, it basically says, you need to be careful with what Donald Trump says and need to be careful with how the interview goes. And it ties into what this guy, this fruit, is talking about when it comes to hatred and spreading hatred. In other words, when they say you can't say anything hateful, it's you need to lay down and allow illegal immigrants to come into Europe and North America and Australia. And if you say anything about it, and if you protest against it, my boyfriend Keir Starmer and myself are going to arrest you and put you in jail. And here's Keir Starmer throwing punches.
That's it. And again, try and breathe. Relax. That's it.
I will never not show this on every episode. This is your Labor Party. The least popular who combine parties in order to become the lead or the leaders in the government. That's how they have to win. He is a communist. So is this guy. Thierry Breton. Frenchman. Need I say more? And so these are the guys who, if you want to put a name to, I was saying this last night, anybody wants to put a name to who's in control of this and who are the ones that are putting people in jail and who are the ones that are turning the country upside down, who are the true communists, the ones who are destroying the planet, North America, Europe, and Australia. These are two of those guys. Look at this guy. Look at that punch. Wow. Super strong guy there. That's what makes this thing more frustrating, is to watch a guy, these guys. It's these guys. If you were to fake throw a punch at these guys, they would literally fall to the ground. So here, speaking of illegal immigration, I can't confirm this video. However, I do believe that it's most likely true. And it's probably one of the most angering things that I've seen. But again, not at all surprising. This is strategic. They're doing this on purpose. It's a way to, again, bring people into this country and into Europe in order to replace white America and black America, by the way, in this particular case. Those who are hardworking people who've worked their ass off to make something of themselves. Really native-born people, in a sense, of America. But just listen to what this woman's story is.
I need this message to go out to our vice president, who's running for president. I have heard all over social media about, excuse me if I say anything wrong, immigrants getting loans, money.
That, by the way, her saying that is the first problem that we have in America. I'm sorry if I say anything wrong. Here's a woman, by the way, who is a minority, who is a protected class, and quite frankly, gets treated much better than people like me. But neither here nor there, has to say that she's needs to be careful with what she says to not offend someone. This is how we've been brainwashed as North Americans and Europeans and Australians to hate our own race, hate our own religion, hate our own country and everything else, and to not question what's happening. And again, I've brought this up before, the scene in Saving Private Ryan when the German soldier and the American soldier are on the upstairs room fighting each other, and the German soldier plunges the knife into the American soldier's heart and tells him to shush while he's killing him. That is what's happening to us. We're being told to shush while we're being killed. And yes, that's what's happening to us. And yes, that is why YouTube will silence my video saying that and other people's videos saying that. Even though they're a publicly traded company and they are a monopoly and they are allowed to say these things and do these things. If someone points it out or says something, they are so brainwashed and so beaten up that they say something like that, which is pathetic to have to say.
It was hard for me to believe. It was just extremely hard for me to believe. I've been in business such a long time. Back in 2019, I purchased my first food truck. It cost me over $25,000. I paid it cash money. I worked hard to pay for this truck. I'm now selling it because I'm doing other things, but I'm selling it. I had a guy come to look at purchasing my vehicle, or my food truck, and he explained to me he's an illegal immigrant. He has no credit. He has no money in the bank. But he showed me his paperwork that he will receive funds to purchase my food truck. I'm thankful that he's buying it, but I'm hurt that I worked so hard to pay cash for my food truck. I have good credit, can't even get a business loan because of the color of my skin. I have veterans in my family. I'm a veteran. I've been self-employed for so long. But somebody, please tell me, how do I work so hard to have somebody who comes to this country, not long, no credit, and he shows me paperwork where they'll be funding him money to buy my food truck. And when I talked to the bank, they told me usually they have to go straight to a dealership because I'm a private sale. But for special circumstances, they're going to, they allow it. But I need my president to tell me why I worked so hard all these years, all these decades. Couldn't get a business loan, but I bust my ass to get the money to create my business. And we got immigrants coming here. And they're getting money. Money! We're doing nothing but just being here. It's not right, and I want answers.
Well, you're not going to get them. I mean, if this is true, and again, I don't know, this seems a bit far-fetched, but then at the same time, not so much. Because, think about it. These people are allowed to cross the border illegally. They're not stopped. Or if they are, they're given a court date. They're put on a bus or a plane, and they're brought to another part of the country. In all likelihood, their court date is what? Several years from now? They're not going to show up for it. Many Democrats are trying to do what they can to give them these PIN ID numbers in order for them to be able to pay taxes. I get anytime I say, well, how are they supposed to pay taxes? these so-called, Robert Reich likes to talk about this, and I comment all the time. How many billions of dollars that illegal immigrants pay in taxes that they don't benefit from, he says. Well, how are they benefiting, or how are they paying taxes if they have no paperwork, if they're undocumented? And then I continue to get attacked about, well, they pay sales tax. Okay, big deal. They pay taxes when they buy gas. Okay, well, that's why gas prices go up. Well, they pay taxes when they rent places. Okay, well, that's why housing prices is going up. When they're on the roads, they cause traffic, unbelievably bad traffic. Traffic like we've never seen in decades. That's why gas prices go up. Well, they pay... I did it again. Taxes when they rent places. Okay, well, that's why housing... Found my problem. So you have these... I guess it's like they're like these tax or Social Security like cards that they get with these numbers. So then they can pay Social Security, but they don't get the benefits from it. Okay, that's probably a small amount of people, but the other ones, they actually steal people's identities in order to pay taxes if they're working. So there's all of this stuff that's going on. But from the very beginning, they're crossing the border illegally. So they've already broken the law, and they may have broken the law again, getting documents from other people in order to pay any taxes. And there's study after study after study, endless amounts, that fly in the face of the amount of money net positive. It's actually a net negative, according to these studies, on taxpayer dollars from the illegal immigration. But of course, the Democrats are going to focus on the few studies that show that there's a net positive. But in reality, it's a net negative, if you really take in everything into effect. So is it really far-fetched? Is it really hard to believe that what this woman is saying isn't true? If they're given every benefit, if you go to New York City, there's this kid that does YouTube videos. He goes around and interviews illegal immigrants that are in New York City. He goes all over the place, but one of the episodes he did was in New York City. He's interviewing an immigrant. It was either from Venezuela or Nicaragua. I can't remember where it was. He's getting 3 square meals a day. He's staying in a very nice hotel. Outside that hotel, on the corner of the street, is a homeless veteran who says on camera, "I haven't gotten anything. I haven't been able to get any benefits." That veteran. So again, is what this woman's saying far-fetched? Is it a lie? I doubt it. Think about the millions upon millions and billions, by the way, that are given to the UN and to the NGOs to facilitate the illegal immigration that's coming in right now. And what does Donald Trump say when he's having a conversation with Elon Musk on X that they couldn't get that shit together for 45 minutes because he couldn't get the technology straight? We need to do something about the southern border. And Kamala Harris is supposedly the border czar, and she should be doing. They're talking as if this is like a minor problem. It's like some sort of policy issue. It is a literal invasion of the United States. These people are being facilitated to come into our country on a wholesale scale, paid for by taxpayer dollars, the middle class like us and the white middle class and this woman. So we work our ever-loving asses off. We pay insane mortgage rates, interest rates. We get very little interest on our savings. Many of us can't afford to be in Wall Street in the market. Credit card debt is high. Food prices are high. Insurance is through the roof. That's a whole different scenario that I can get into, a whole different subject that I can get into. We're constantly sick because of the stress that we're under, because of all of these things. Plus, the food supply is trash. You can't get decent food anymore because leftist communist psychopaths go around and burn food manufacturing plants down. They derail trains that carry food. They kill cows. They light cow farms on fire, cow pastures on fire. They light farms on fire. And we sit around with our thumbs up our ass wondering when's the next Taylor Swift concert, or when's the next Giants football game against Dallas Cowboys, or when is the next Bachelor program. And so I'm not blaming this woman, but at the same time, who did you vote for? You know, typically somebody would admit who they're voting for. You know what? I made a mistake. I voted for blah, blah, blah. Or, yeah, I voted for Trump. And those of you who voted for Biden, you should be, say something, indicate something. But what ends up happening is you have a lot of these people who say this type of stuff. And then what ends up happening when it comes down to it? Like Charlemagne the God, who looks like a woman. Here's a guy who sits there and gets talked down to by Joe Biden. If you don't vote Democrat, then you ain't black. And what is he doing now? He's being a Democrat shill with his eyeshadow and everything else. So you look at it and you go, what do you expect? I mean, elections have consequences, but these people don't care. Their lives are being destroyed, yet they continue to vote for what destroys them. And that's where I've come to the realization within the last, I've always known this subconsciously, but really sort of vocalizing it now. It's not really the politicians that are the problem. It's the people that vote for the politicians. It's the people who vote for Biden and vote for Harris. The fact that we even have anyone at all that wants to vote for Harris, considering the fact that she's going out and saying that she has an economic plan to bring prices down and she's currently the vice president. Are you fucking kidding me? And you're going to vote for her? She's currently the president right now of the United States. And you're going to sit there and tell me that you haven't been able to fix the things while you're in office now? Especially her. You can't use the excuse that she's vice president and she doesn't have control. She has total control. But here you go. Here's a woman who, again, it's not surprising to me that somebody who's here illegally, who crossed the border illegally, got taxpayer cash to buy a food truck. It's not a surprise to me. Now here's another one who I just recently found out, and I was always suspect of this dude, Patrick Bet-David. Here's a guy who's popular. Not a lot of people know about him, but he is becoming more popular. Primarily because he's got a shit ton of money, and I'm about to go into how it happened. And he's this popular guy on YouTube, of course. Influencer guy on YouTube, of course. Born in Iran. Of course, he's the American dream guy. I came to America and I live the American dream. But meanwhile, when you sit there and you figure, how do these guys make money? You look at Ty Lopez, you look at, you know, these guys, Andrew Tate, and then you dig deep enough, not surface, but deep enough, and figure out how these guys make money. You go, oh, okay. The respect goes right out the window. And Patrick Bet-David, who was in insurance, primarily life insurance, and this isn't me criticizing Patrick Bet-David or claiming anything. This is from stuff that I have watched and read. And it's not to say that what he did was illegal per se. Definitely, arguably immoral. And you really can't use the words Ponzi scheme, but multi-level marketing type situation when it comes to insurance. And if you dig deep enough, which I'm not going to go through the details, but if you look into it enough and watch enough of the videos of the people who've done the research and the writing about it, you can see that just like any MLM type situation, the people at the very, very top are the ones who get rich, while the people at the bottom, actually a lot at the top, because it's only like less than 5% at the top who initially get in, make the money, and everybody else at the bottom makes nothing. Meanwhile, doing a lot of work and putting in a lot of time. So every time I watch this guy in his expensive suits and his expensive Rolex watches and showing off his $25 million house in Miami, it turns my stomach to watch this asshole. And then this other guy, Dan Bilzerian, which I'm not really sure. It's kind of a similar sort of situation in a different way, but he's interviewing him about, I mean, it doesn't mean that what they're saying isn't true, but it's kind of an interesting interview.
Muslims aren't the problem. The open borders and motherfuckers and the media attacking nationalism, pushing DEI, transgenderism, and destroying moral values are the problem. August 4th. If you don't put America first as a U.S. politician, you are committing treason. Supporting Israel is bad for America. Netanyahu is a convicted war criminal, and Israel is not our ally. We fought way too many wars for Israel, and we certainly don't need to give them any more money. July 25th. These idiots have ruined movies. Everything they put out is literally propaganda. And then all of a sudden we got scripture here. For what shall it profit? For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Is this recent, comments you're making about Israel a recent thing, or have you always had these beliefs?
It's more recent. I didn't really realize what a problem it was until recently, and then everybody was scared to say something about it. My brother told me, you can't say anything about it. They'll fucking kill you. Everybody basically said that I couldn't say anything about it. And actually now they're literally trying to kick me off the board of my company because of those tweets. So shit, I've definitely had a lot of negative pushback, a lot of my Jewish friends, but I don't give a fuck. It's one of those things where I know that it's the right thing, and the fact that everybody else is scared to say it makes me, feel obligated to be vocal about it.
Why do you think it's the right thing?
Because I know that they're a fucking parasite. They provide the U.S. absolutely no value. They've done so many things that, would constitute, an act of war against us. I mean, USS Liberty, Lebanon Affair, I mean, they can go on and on and on and on and on. But, I think they knew about 9/11. I think they had JFK assassinated. The first thing that he wanted to do, right before he died was, make AIPAC a foreign entity, and not allow them to have nukes. And then all of a sudden this fucking guy's dead. And Jack Ruby, who was Jack Rubenstein, I mean, it's just and then you just, I don't know, man, I can't ignore all the shit that they've done. They sold their secrets. Netanyahu lied to us about weapons of mass destruction. We fought all these fucking wars. My friends have died over there, and I just look at what they provide.
And what he's talking about is just one particular thing when it came to Iraq and Saddam Hussein. But it's something called the Clean Break Memo, which at some point I'm going to do a video about and kind of get into what the Clean Break Memo is and why we are essentially allies with Israel. There is no benefit. Dan Bilzerian doesn't really do the greatest job in this. He may know more than what he's saying here in this particular interview, but there is way more to it than that. It's much more complicated because the more surface and the easier or the more simplistic way of saying it, people are going to just tear it down and say it's anti-Semitic, as opposed to, oh, okay, yeah, I understand why maybe this particular relationship is really not all that beneficial.
Provided us with, and it's not nothing, it's like a negative, it's not, even if they just didn't do jack shit, that would be, bad, but they've actually done things to hurt us over and over and over again. So like this whole thing of they're our greatest allies, just complete fucking bullshit. And, we send them $100 billion, then they send AIPAC $100 million, and then they distribute it to our politicians, and every politician has a little fucking AIPAC handler walking around and telling them what to fucking say and how to vote. And it's just like, look, I'll donate like $100,000 to politicians, and they call me up like, hey, you need anything? Like every week. I don't need shit. I fucking sit on my ass. I don't do anything. I don't care. I don't fucking break any laws. I don't need any favors. Like I just gave it to them because I didn't want to see any more fucking retard, Democrats in there. So, but that's 100,000. Like, what does 100 million buy you? How many fucking phone calls do those guys get? And so, like, I just know how it works, and the system is broken. Like, these people get into office, and they don't have very much money, and they get out of office with fucking tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not a fucking accident, right?
Is that an Israel thing, or is that anybody? Because China's doing the same thing.
China doesn't have they don't have an AIPAC. Like, Israel is the only one that has a fucking, like, a lobby in the U.S. fucking, giving these politicians money.
Okay, no, every country, the big ones all have lobbyists. They all have lobbying that they're doing.
Not in the U.S. They're registered as foreign entities.
Right. I mean, if you're talking about, are you going to the dual citizenship part with Israel, Israel?
That's another problem is a lot of our politicians have far more allegiance to Israel than they do the United States. I mean, that's a whole other issue as well.
So what he's saying is, and he's right. I mean, we don't have, if you look at, and I'm, people could say, oh, well, it's this anti-Jew or, whatever. But AIPAC, there's tweet after tweet after tweet. Amy Klobuchar, how much money they gave to her. Rosa DeLauro. They sit here and then they're not registered as foreign agents. He's right about that. He doesn't do it very eloquently. But there's just endless amounts of posts related to, these are just a couple of them. There's just a lot of them last week related to how much money was given to both Democrats and Republicans. It's unacceptable. It shouldn't be any China, anyone. There should not be this kind of money involved in the United States elections. And Thomas Massie made it very clear. I don't care what anybody says. Okay? People could sit there and say, this is a waste of time, whatever it is. It's not. Thomas Massie made it very clear that AIPAC has, each person, a member of Congress, has an AIPAC handler. And they have to go back to AIPAC, and that handler, they have to run it by their handler first before they vote on it. That should never happen in America. Never happen in America. That is disgusting that happens. That is unacceptable. And they brag about it. AIPAC brags about it. Congratulations to AIPAC endorsed Amy Klobuchar on advancing to the general election. We are proud to support pro-Israel candidates. And it goes way beyond that with the dual citizenship and everything else. We have our own problems in America. We have our own issues. Enough with the foreign stuff. Enough with giving our money to foreign countries and aiding their wars. And the clean break memo, which I'm not going to go into tonight because It's a whole thing. But it goes way beyond that. I mean, it's not even in dispute. I mean, people can argue it all day long, and I've read enough about it, researched enough about it. It's a major problem, and it is a huge, huge issue. Huge issue. Now, moving on to one more thing, because we're already up on an hour. So Kamala Harris is copying off of Donald Trump. She's saying, when I'm elected president, I'm going to make it a top priority to bring down costs. And this is just one more thing that I sit there and go, what kind of clown world are we living in? Are you kidding me? You are currently Vice President of the United States, and you are talking about bringing down costs if you're elected president. This is essentially saying, I know you're all stupid, and you guys are all going to fall for this again, and there you have it. I mean, ALA, you could disagree with me and say it doesn't. I mean, it's more than logical. I mean, it is so logical, it cannot be argued. I mean, it's not even close to being in dispute. I mean, AIPAC controls our elections. They sit there right there and they say it in plain view that they control our elections, and then they give money to our elections. How is that not logical? I mean, it's right there. But here's Kamala Harris saying how she's going to bring down costs when she's president.
When I am elected president, I will make it a top priority to bring down costs and increase economic security for all Americans.
Now here's CNN saying how ridiculous her plan is.
Catherine, I read your piece and I heard you just mention it. The federal ban on price gouging for groceries. You are skeptical of this. Why?
Well, first of all, nobody can explain what price gouging means. It's like that old line about pornography. I know it when I see it. In the sense that, what does it mean to have an excessive price or an excessive profit margin? That seems to be shorthand for a price or a profit margin that bugs me. That seems too high. So, it's very hard to pin down what this would actually mean. If you look at the legislation that, as I mentioned, is already in the Senate, led by Senator Warren and Senator Bob Casey and a slew of others, the particular way that this is written, which is likely to be the template for any proposal that Harris would eventually embrace, is especially bad in that it just bans excessive prices, grossly excessive profit margins, and says that the Federal Trade Commission can use any metric it deems appropriate to decide what that would mean. Which basically says, like, it's not going to be markets, it's not going to be supply and demand that's determining how much your grocery store charges you for milk or for eggs. It's going to be some bureaucrat in D.C., which seems like totally unworkable, first of all, for the FTC to be deciding, like, how much Kroger charges for eggs in Michigan. But it also would be very bad for markets. We've seen this kind of thing tried in lots of other countries before: Venezuela, Argentina, the Soviet Union, etc. It leads to shortages. It leads to black markets, plenty of uncertainty. And beyond that, the specific way this bill is written might actually increase prices because of some of the other language in it. Things like requiring companies, public companies, to disclose in their quarterly reports, their quarterly earnings reports, how they're setting prices, which is a great way to help them collude, which normally we don't want them to do. So anyway, you know, the devil's in the details, I guess, for that bill, but it's really hard for me to imagine any form of legislation that preserves the spirit of what she's proposing that would not be, you know, at best do nothing, at worst cause a lot of harm.
So, okay, I mean, when it comes to price gouging, that whole thing, I think, again, it's a kind of a ridiculous argument to say that there is price gouging. I think she's making the argument that it should be based on markets, not on punishing those for increasing prices just for the sake of doing it. I'm sure there are companies that are price gouging. I'm sure there are companies that, and then there are companies that are making record profits and taking advantage of the situation, no doubt about it. But the bottom line is this. It doesn't take someone who is a Harvard MBA, the smartest business person on the planet, to figure out that Kamala Harris is sitting there saying to you that when I'm in office, I'm going to fix this stuff. And it's funny how, and I even get kind of sucked into this. I get sucked into these types of arguments too when it comes to the Israel thing. It becomes, people, what they'll do is, in order to make an argument, they'll overcomplicate the argument. You know, and for instance, they'll say, well, we have this strategic relationship with Israel because, you know, we have bases and we use their technology and we do, and this and that. And, you know, there are all these benefits that we have with Israel. We have plenty of bases and aircraft carriers. We don't need that relationship. We have our own technology. In fact, a lot of the technology that Israel uses comes from the United States. I mean, we are being used just like we were in the 80s when Israel was 400% inflation. It's a socialist state, and they needed the United States to stay afloat. It's the same thing now. And when Thomas Massie, unless you want to call him a liar and saying it's completely untrue that AIPAC has a representative for every member of Congress, if you're saying that that's not true, then you can then there's an argument there. But if Thomas Massie is saying he's the only one out of Congress that doesn't have an AIPAC member, then that's a problem. And there is no, you can complicate the argument as much as you want, but that's pretty much black and white. You know, and it's, you know, it's an Occam's razor thing. You know, it's pretty simple. If the most simple argument is most likely the situation. And the clean break memo, if you read that, it's beyond any reasonable doubt. Everything that we're involved in, if Afghanistan, the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, taking down Saddam Hussein, Iran that we're dealing with now, the possibility of getting into a war with Iran. And this is where Donald Trump needs to come out and say, we are not going into any wars from this point on. We are done. And Kazan, you're right. We should not be giving any money to anybody anymore. This is it. I'm sick and tired of giving my hard-earned dollars that I work my fucking ass off for every day to some foreign fucking country. I'm tired of it. So fuck all of you that think we should be supporting Israel or any other country for that matter. We got problems of our own. And I'm sick of the overcomplication or this argument of trying to make it overly complicated about what all this stuff is. It's very simple. It's a country that wants our money, and they want money from the United States. They want our support. We should be done with it. Done with it, period. That's it. Go do your own thing. Leave us alone. It's that simple. That's all there is to it. And if you want to have dual citizenship, go pick a country. Pick a place to go. I pick America. If you want to pick another country, go live in that country. Go help them out. So anyway, here's, and I'm going to leave it at that, with a picture of Kamala Harris's latest rally. Of course, looks like the honeymoon kind of wore out a bit. Most of the people that are there seemingly are the ones from the press. And I guess if you're not giving away free concerts and having degenerates like rappers and things like that shaking their ass and titties on stage and using AI to increase the amount of people in your crowds, this is what you get. So I'm not happy, obviously, with, and I've said this yesterday, with Donald Trump and his campaign. However, he did shake that up. That is big news. He's got a lot more people, or he's got Corey Lewandowski. He didn't fire Chris LaCivita or Susie Wiles, which is a huge disappointment. But it is a change. Hopefully he's starting to listen to those who are the people that were behind him from 2015 and 2016. Some people are taking credit for it, like Nick Fuentes, who somehow thinks that he was the who wants to call himself the Trump supporter from the very beginning, yet he ran Kanye West's presidential campaign with Milo Yiannopoulos. But yet he's the Trump guy all the way. I mean, I don't. So he's in a fight with Laura Loomer, who also, I mean, it's all about, I guess, clout and how much money they can make on talking about that kind of stuff. And it's all about the almighty dollar for them, not really about what's good for America. It's the thing about it is everybody's more worried about other countries. They're more worried about themselves and how much money they can grift off this whole thing. I don't even want to do this. I'm just passionate about doing this because I'm so sick and tired of watching the bullshit that people are being fed. And I want to say something about it to the 5 people that watch me. And call out what I see to me is lies. I'm not saying I'm right about everything. But I've been around long enough to know what's right and what's wrong. And over the years, how the country's been taken advantage of. And this, I'm going to leave it with this. You know, this is 1996. I don't know why this showed up in my YouTube. It's not my high school.
But I got kicked out.
But it shows you what high school looked like. The graduating class in the mid-90s.
There he is. This is for our 10-year reunion. Say hi. We're watching this 10 years from now at our reunion. Here's the sick people.
No, I'm not sick.
Give me 19.
There's a completely different world.
What's up? I have to sign your yearbook. I have to sign. Oh.
And this is in New Jersey, pretty kind of sort of close to where I grew up.
Rage. Okay.
I mean, the demographics have completely changed in that short period of time, seemingly short period of time. And when I was watching, I won't play the whole thing because it's a long video, but if you just look at it, and again, the demographics are completely different. And we were told by those in the who wrote the Hart-Celler Act in 1965 that the demographics were not going to change. And that's not true. The demographics completely changed in America. And it's not for the good. at all. And you can just see the crime. You can see the world is not better. Has customer service gotten better when you go get things done? Is traffic better? Is crime better? Is your life overall better, or is it 10 times worse? And I think everybody would agree it's 10 times worse. But don't dare say anything because you're a racist if you do. So what you should do is you should sit there and lay down and take it. Allow it to happen. Allow your country to be taken over. Allow your race to be exterminated. Allow yourself to be genocided. That's why I do this, because I'm not going to sit there and let it happen, and I'm going to talk about it. And I certainly hope that Donald Trump starts to wake up more and make more changes in his campaign. And I certainly hope that he pays more attention to America and not to other countries. So anyway, I'm leaving it at that. Kazan, thanks for showing up at the last second. I appreciate you coming, man. And I might do one maybe tomorrow. Not Sunday for sure, but maybe tomorrow. And possibly see you then, but definitely next Thursday. Thanks for being here, and have a good night. Have a fun Friday, and maybe see you tomorrow.